Welcome to part 5 of our fall 2025 trip to Switzerland. We started off our day trying a second bakery this morning. It was a local bakery that does a lot of the grocery store bakery goods and such, and we weren't particularly fond of it as it wasn't as good as the Maki bakery we had been to the previous day. After doing a little procrastination due to weather, we just got some lunch before we went on our hike. We went to a local Korean cafe and got a really good lunch. After lunch, the low clouds had receded and only the high clouds were left. We decided we might as well go for the cliff walk, which is a pretty low elevation hike around the lake, and headed out on the train. We were wanting to do the Stews Ridge hike on this trip to Lucerne, but the weather just was not cooperating, so we went with this easier, more low-level hike to avoid the clouds. We took a quick train ride to Stansted, where we would catch a transfer to a bus. Since pretty much everything runs on time in Switzerland, the bus was still waiting when we got there with a train that was perfectly on time. It was nice to get on a bus that wasn't very crowded, and we headed off across town and into the hills. Sitting in our comfortable bus, we noticed to the right this extremely dedicated bicyclist going up this hill. As usual, the hill never looks as steep on the camera as it is in real life, and it even looks steep on the camera. We see a few other cyclists climbing up this hill, but most of them are down in the valley near the lake, where it makes a little more sense for someone who's not really hardcore. The view on the bus ride was actually better than the view on the train ride and was really pretty on the way up. After the lake views and some windy roads, we ended up in farmland up in the hills, and it was really nice to be able to see the cows and local farmers at work. The top of the bus route ends up at the resort and in this parking lot with this spectacular view of the countryside. After enjoying the view a little bit, we turned around and headed up the hill to see if we could find the start of the trailhead. Once we got up towards the resort, we saw this incredible viewpoint of the lake. Our entire stay in Lucerne was extremely gray and cloudy, so we weren't going to get any spectacular photos, but it was still a really nice place to stop and look. It also is really cool that in a 5-minute walk you can go from the beautiful farmland with the green pastures to this overview of the lake. After checking out some more of the views, we wandered into the Tourist Information Center, which we got distracted by all the pretty colors and the cool maps in the middle, and then we eventually headed out for our hike. The great place about being in a place like Switzerland is they have really good signs of where things are, and they give you an expected time, not a distance, so you don't even have to figure out elevation gain and such. The Cliff Walk Trail gives you views of the lake the whole way. It does have some trees that block the view at times, but this is pretty much what it looks like. After a little bit of walking, we found this sign that said that the stairs were the shortcut. We weren't sure how far the long cut was, so we decided we'd take the shortcut up the stairs, as at least we had an idea of how long it would take to get there. After a handful of stairs, we were back out on the quote-unquote cliff walk, which is more of a nice, wide, easy-to-use trail along the side of the hill. This portion of the trail ends at the Hammerschwan lift terminal with a really cool porta potty made out of wood right out in front of it. One interesting thing to note is we saw that one of the workers here actually commutes by bicycle in, as she was leaving as we were arriving and was leaving on a bicycle. Because the public transport here is so good, I would assume she just rides her bicycle back to the resort and then takes a bus home. A single one-way lift ticket is 15 Swiss francs, which ends up being about $20 US. The view out of the lift was fantastic, and we had our hopes up that there would be an incredible view waiting for us at the top. However, the weather continued to not disappointing us, because when we got to the top, everything was covered in fog, and the view was actually worse than it was from the cliff walk. After a brief stay at the top, where the restaurant was closed and everything was covered in clouds, we decided to head down the backside of the hill to finish the hike. The hike down the backside of the hill wasn't exciting. This was the best view we had, and then we went into the forest. Once in the forest, it looks a lot like the lower elevation hikes back home, so we weren't exactly excited about it. It was a nice hike though. After a little ways down the hill, we actually met a missionary who was quite talkative and chatted with us all the way back to the bus stop. Even though we were in Switzerland, this was the closest we'd been to cows the whole trip so far. We stopped to say some moos and took some pictures and then headed on. Once we got to the bus stop, we had about a half-hour wait, so we decided to head down this little trail and see if we could get a better view of the valley. When we got farther down the trail though, the cows had moved away from the fence and there was a sign saying that there were honeybees right there, and we decided not to hang around and test our luck. We got really lucky with the weather because it just started raining before the bus arrived, and we didn't get rained on during our hike, and there was a nice little shelter to hang out in. Overall, it was a nice hike, hindered a little bit by the clouds and the weather, but it was also quite an easy hike, so we really couldn't complain about the effort versus views ratio. When we got back to town, we threw on our rain gear and headed out and walked through the train station on our way to find some place to have some dinner. For dinner, we looked up a fondue restaurant and headed on over there without a reservation. When we walked in, the whole place was empty, and we were told there was only 3 seats available that weren't reserved. We assumed it was just a really busy restaurant and that everyone would be arriving in the near future for some kind of like a local kind of dinner time thing. What we didn't know was this giant empty hall ended up being a giant tourist trap for lots of tours from around the world, and they have a dinner and a show. After about 45 minutes, big tour groups started arriving, and you could see all these reserved tables started getting filled up. We had some decent fondue, but the better part of it was the show afterwards, where they did a lot of local traditional singing and musical acts. It There were tour groups from all over the world, including the US, and most of the folks looked very retired, as they all looked in their 60s and 70s. We got a glimpse into what it would be like to be on one of the big tour groups you get as a retired person. Here are a few clips of the various acts they did that went on for a couple of hours before the end of the evening around 9 p.m.